Welcome to Studies with Stearman. Join us as we look deeper into the Bible. Strengthen your faith with us, even as we see the day approaching. And now, here's Gary.
We're going to continue in Revelation talking about the trumpets. There's a lot of confusion about the 7 trumpets of Revelation. Some of it totally uncalled for, in my opinion, just a bunch of fast and loose biblical interpretation. And we're going to get into that today a little bit. But let's review the trumpets. Turn to Revelation chapter 8. And I wanted to go through these trumpets. 8:7, the first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. A third part of the trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up. Now, this is the real start of what we think of as the tribulation. In other words, it's the trumpet that starts the judgment. The seals, back in Revelation 6, don't really begin the tribulation per se. And I want to repeat that, even though we talked about it. The seals lay the groundwork for the Great Tribulation. We have the Antichrist going forth, we have war, we have famine, pestilence, we have economic collapse, all kinds of horrific things. And it's not until the 6th seal is opened that we begin to see what we would call the tribulation, where the sun becomes black and the moon turns to blood, and there are massive movements of the earth's plates, and we have islands sinking into the sea and so forth. It's not until that seal that all this begins. And then we have the trumpets. The last seal, the 7th seal, prepares the angels to blow their trumpets. First trumpet, we have a massive business in which the grass is burned up. What's happening here, as God judges the world, He's basically judging the ecosystems one by one. So the first trumpet sounds, and you have a third of the earth's dry surface totally destroyed. Second trumpet, Revelation 8 and 9. The second trumpet destroys a third of the salt water, including the sea life. Second angel sounds. A great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. A third part of the sea became blood, in a kind of a recalling of what happened at the Exodus when Moses turned the waters of Egypt to blood. A third part of the creatures which were in the sea died. Third part of the ships destroyed. So some kind of an astronomical body plunges into the sea, and it turns the sea to blood, whatever that means. Is it real blood? Could be. Does it just look like blood? I don't know. But whatever it is, it's poisonous to the life that's in the sea. Third trumpet. Third angel sounded, and there fell from heaven a great star burning as a torch. Fell a great star from heaven burning as a lamp, it says in the King James Version. And it fell upon a third part of the rivers, upon the fountains of the waters. So it destroys a third of the sweet water supply. Whenever the word star is used symbolically, it's commonly the symbol of an angel. Some people have said this is an angel falling from heaven and touching the waters. And the name of the star then might be the name of an angel, which is wormwood, or in the Greek, absinthe, which is a bitter, herbaceous poison. By the way, absinthe is a hallucinogen. I have studied it a little bit, and back in the 19th century, people used to drink absinthe mixed with alcohol to achieve the effect of LSD. Same rough effect. It was very common in the bars of Paris in the 19th century to go in and mix a little absinthe, which is wormwood, with your alcohol and put a little spoon of sugar in it, and drink that up, and it made you see all kinds of great and wonderful things. By the way, Vincent van Gogh, the Dutch artist, was addicted to absinthe, which may explain some of what you see in his paintings. But I say all that just to say that bit by bit, these judgments of God are messing with the human mind. If you can imagine being a human, unregenerate human being, alive in those days, everything that's real to you is going to be turned upside down. You're going to be walking around in a state of shock, and maybe even in a state of mental confusion. if this absinthe becomes a widespread problem. That's the third trumpet. I'm not sure whether that star is an angel or whether it is a comet. It could be a comet. Comets, of course, are well known to contain poisonous materials of all kinds, including cyanide. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Fourth trumpet destroys a third of the earth's light. These verses don't necessarily imply that a third of the sun, moon, and stars are destroyed, but just that their light is somehow hindered from reaching the earth. Fourth angel sounded, verse 12. Third part of the sun was smitten, a third part of the moon, third part of the stars, so the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. So 4 curses have been pronounced here, and now we have an angel flying through heaven saying, Woe, woe, and woe. So the worst part of the judgments yet to come, the 3 woes. Now we have another star. Revelation 9, 5th trumpet, 5th angel sounded. I saw a star fall from heaven to the earth to him. Now this angel, or star, has a masculine pronoun connected with him. He is a he. I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. In the Greek, the bottomless pit is a very interesting kind of a place. The bottomless pit is called the well shaft of the abyss. The well shaft of the abyss. If you can imagine a tunnel that goes down to some kind of a chamber under the earth, that's what you've got here. Phriatos tis abyssos, the well shaft of the abyss, is what it says in the Greek. There are secular authorities, esoteric groups, wizards, necromancers, New Agers, people who practice oddball religions. And if you study those religions, you will discover that there's a widespread belief that there are several openings scattered around the surface of the earth, through which it is possible to reach the underworld. I could name the names of the geographic locations where these people say there are these openings that allow you to reach into the abyss. One of them is in the Mato Grosso region of Brazil. And all kinds of evil comes out of that place and other similar places. These are places known to be frequented by idolatry, dark spirits, a lot of evil. The point is that all of that idolatry, all of that witchcraft, all of that messing around that people do with demonology is going to come smack and hit them in the face during the tribulation. That's going to be opened up, and everything they have worshipped is going to come out of the ground. And they're not going to like that. Once they finally see it face to face, they're going to say, "What have I done?" The well shaft of the abyss. The 5th angel has a key that opens this well shaft. And he opened the bottomless pit, that is the abyss, and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. So now we have yet another darkening of the sun. We had one back in Revelation 6. Now we have this one. Apparently, during the tribulation period, the atmosphere is going to be so totally polluted that it's going to be either dim or dark a lot of the time. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, that is, what's left of the grass after the big grass fire, neither any green thing nor any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And so this takes us back to chapter 7 and the sealing of the 144,000, where if you go back to Revelation 7, verse 2, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed our servants, the servants of our God, in their foreheads. And so that then brings us back over here to Revelation 9 again. And by the way, Revelation 9, God's judgment of all the evil idolatry that there has ever been on the face of the earth, going all the way back to the Assyrians, the Hittites, the Babylonians, the Baal worshipers, the Phoenicians, all of those people who have ever worshipped evil spirits that came out of that area of the Mideast and spread across the world. We know that, for example, in South America, if you go study the pre-Columbian cultures of South America, absolutely riddled with the kind of idolatry we're talking about here. Strange-looking gods appearing, and you had Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl, the serpent gods, and you had all of these gods that people worshipped. In the end, all of those gods are going to come out with a vengeance. Right now, they are locked up, thank God. We have in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4, For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment. And Peter just comes right out and says it. There are angels that are chained up under the earth in these various places in the abyss, which I take it is a global phenomenon. You might think of the abyss as local, maybe like there's a well shaft of the abyss someplace in western Oklahoma. But I think of it's more of a global phenomenon in some way. This abyss involves all of the earth. And the angels are down there right now wishing they could get out, and they will get out. They will be allowed to work their evil on the surface of the earth, but right now they are chained in some way that we don't understand in a place called Tartaros, which is the deepest part of hell. That's the word that Peter uses in 2 Peter 2:4. Cast them down to Tartaros, delivered them to chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. So they're sitting there waiting to get out. And they have every hope of getting out. If I were one of those angels chained up, and have been chained up for thousands of years, waiting to get out, my hope would be that my Lord and Master Satan would free me, and that I would get out in the end and be freed and serve him forevermore. In other words, I don't think they've given up hope. Although they were visited by Jesus after his crucifixion, he descended into the deep and preached to the spirits in prison and told them that he had defeated them. So they should know. But if I were one of those guys chained up down in the abyss, I would reserve just the slightest grain of hope that maybe I will get out and make it at last. We live on a strange planet, if you really look at it. This planet is not what you think it is. He spared not the old world. God spared not the old world. What is that old world? And how long have those angels been chained down there? We could talk about that sometime. We don't have time this morning. It's an old world. Those spirits have been chained down there for a long time. And we know that at the very least they are the spirits of the fallen angels, the Nephilim, the Rephaim, the fallen angels who came down in the days of Noah. Spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing the flood upon the world of the ungodly, turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an example to those that should after live godly. So forth. Jude says virtually the same thing. If you go to Jude 5, Jude 5 says, I will therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. And the angels, and notice Jude puts this in the context of the Exodus. having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. In other words, some people came out of Egypt as unbelievers, and God destroyed them. And the angels which kept not their first estate, and the first estate, of course, was their originally created habitat in heaven, somewhere in heaven, and we don't know where. We don't know that much about heaven. But in what Paul calls the third heaven, or the dimensional heaven, where apparently the throne of God is located, the angels were created to live there, but they decided to leave their own habitation because they were tempted by power, by lust, by money, whatever you can buy, sell, trade. They came down to make their kingdom on earth, and they had it in mind that they were going to reign as lords on planet earth until God destroyed them. And by the way, they did reign as lords on planet earth for a good long time. They left their own habitation. He reserved them in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. Well, the judgment of the great day is the day of the Lord, the tribulation. And so when we're looking at the blowing of the trumpets, particularly in Revelation 9, we're looking at the event spoken of by Peter and Jude when those angels would be judged. But there's an interesting inversion because the angels themselves act as judges. They are reserved unto judgment, says Peter. But when they're released in Revelation 9, they act as judges upon the men who at that time will be living on the surface of the earth. There came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. Now, a scorpion on earth has power to sting, but not necessarily to kill. There are just a very few scorpions that actually are able to kill people. Most of the time you get a scorpion bite, it just hurts like everything for a while. But you get over it. But if you had like 10 scorpions sting you, you'd be in agony. These demons, and that's what they are now, denizens of the deep, have the power of venom somehow. I don't think they're insects. I think if you read very carefully, they are of the serpent class, and we'll see that in just a minute. But they do have the power to torment men by venomous means of some sort. And notice it's commanded them that they not hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, nor neither any tree. The reason for this is that at this point in time, God wants to keep human beings alive to suffer torment. And we'll see that more clearly in a moment. To them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. Tormented for 5 months. I don't know why 5 months, nor why John mentioned it. But someday we'll figure out why this period has to be 5 months long. It obviously fits into some larger pattern that we don't understand at this point in time. And by the way, as we read on into this, I want you to be thinking one thing: special effects, computer generation, 3D, sci-fi. Steven Spielberg. I want you to be thinking about all of the movie creations, monster creations that have been created in literally hundreds of movies in the last 15, 20 years that have to do with monstrous creatures walking the face of the earth in one capacity or another. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of these movies. Sci-fi special effects people really are good at creating monstrous creatures, convincing monstrous creatures. And that's exactly what we have here. But it ain't sci-fi. It's real. In other words, there's a real thing, a real phenomenon behind the curtain that we see in the movies today. The movies today are just kind of a temporary diversion until the real thing comes along. Verse 5. So given to them that they should not kill them, but they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a man. Why would God turn loose a bunch of demons and allow them to torment human beings? Well, because it's Judgment Day. That's why. You want to believe in demons? Take this, says God. I'll give you some demons. And by the way, if you mention demons to most people today, they'll just say, well, that's pure fiction, et cetera, et cetera. But I tell you, those demons are locked up down there right now, just waiting to get out. And I think they probably are stirring because they know that it's about time. Now, here's an interesting thing in verse 6. And in those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Men will be suicidal. Why? Well, if you live in a dark, smoking world of earthquakes and falling asteroids and cracks opening in the ground and all kinds of bad stuff, sooner or later you're going to say, man, I've had it. I'm out of here. I'm going to jump off the nearest bridge. And you'll jump off and land down there and you won't die. How does that work? I don't know. I've heard a lot of theories. One theory, very imaginative theory, is that there will be some kind of a genetic reversal in those days that will allow people to live through catastrophic happenings of various kinds just so they'll be able to fully experience judgment. I don't know that that's true. It could be that there will be powers. For example, if you jump off a building, something might catch you to keep you from dying. Or if you try to shoot yourself, something might catch the bullet. I don't know. But isn't it interesting that men are going to seek death and not be able to find it? And they'll want to die, and death shall flee from them. That's the kind of world the judgment day is going to be. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold, their faces, the faces of men. I've heard a lot of imaginative explanations for this, people dressed in hazmat suits or whatever, but I think we're just looking at the description of demonic creatures here. Flat out demonic creatures from out of the abyss. I think there are probably as many different kinds of demonic creatures as your imagination can stir up. There are probably different classes. John sees something that he describes as locusts, only these are not locusts. These are maybe some kind of creatures that have exoskeletons or maybe armor on of some kind that resembles an exoskeleton. And John saw that, and he, in his own mind, it looked a lot like a locust. On their heads, crowns of gold? I don't know. These would not be ordinary crowns. These might be some kind of apparatus or some kind of protection. On their heads, crowns of gold. Now, the crown mentioned here is Stephanos. That wouldn't seem to be very protective, because usually a crown called Stephanos in the Greek is a crown of oak leaves or olive leaves or bay leaves, that they put on the head of an athlete. So you wouldn't think of that as much of protection. But that's what the original language says. Maybe it's a part of their body. Maybe it's some kind of apparatus. I don't know. But they had faces similar to the faces of men. They had long hair, verse 8, as the hair of women. In other words, back in John's day, when women had long hair, they had long hair. It was the custom in those days not to cut your hair at all. And the women of Rome had elaborate, fancy hairdos with very long hair. The Jewish women had very long hair too, which usually they kept rolled up so that it didn't show. That was thought to be prudent in a religious way. But these demons have long hair. So if you can imagine something that has on something like armor, some metallic components, long hair, and teeth like the teeth of lions, teeth meant to rip and tear, apparently. And they have breastplates. Again, this appears to be an armored creature of some kind. Demons wearing armor. Now, you've all seen that in special effects departments from Hollywood. They've come up with 1 million of those, right? Weird creatures that come clanking up and just pound you into the ground. It's the stuff of sci-fi, except this is not sci-fi. This is for real. So if you know anybody that you want to bring the Word of God and salvation to, tell them, listen, judgment's coming. You don't want to be there. this should motivate you to make sure that your friends and neighbors don't go into this setting. I don't know how far into the future this is, but could be close. We have demons coming out. I want to say another word about the abyss. The abyss is a temporary place of confinement for fallen angels and demons. It's the place where demons were afraid to be sent. You remember when Jesus encountered demons and he started to curse them and they begged him, please don't send us into the abyss, Lord. Send us into the bodies of those swine over there. And for some reason, only known to God, he didn't send them to the abyss. He sent them into the bodies of swine. The swine ran down and drowned themselves in the sea. I have no idea what's going on there, or whether those angels went elsewhere after the swine died. I don't know. Fallen angels, demons, they've got a life of their own, and we understand very, very little about it. But we do know that fallen angels and demons are confined to the abyss, and they are waiting to be released for specific judgments on mankind. That's why they're there. After that, they will be cast into the lake of fire. But the abyss is only a temporary hangout for these people. These angels are commanded to refrain from destroying any vegetation. In other words, God, I think, wants to leave the world in a sufficiently organized state that people can still live on it and be judged. And they are commanded not to torment anybody with the seal of God on their foreheads. That's really interesting. I'll tell you why it's interesting. Because I don't think you and I have the seal of God on our foreheads. That's not us. We are members of the church, the body of Christ. And we have been baptized into the body by the Spirit of the living God, which is a different deal than having a seal in your forehead. A seal is like a one-day pass. It says, don't hurt this person. But to be baptized by the Spirit of God is to have an eternal pass, if you will. We have been brought into the family of God. So we are not to be confused with these people during the tribulation who are sealed. They are in a different class. They are not, if you will, in the body of Christ in the same sense that we are. And God has to give special dispensation to them regarding the demons. Very interesting. Their origin, being the abyss, shows that they are demons. What are demons? I believe there are 4 classes of angels, the lowest class being the demons. And I believe the demons are the spirits of the lowest class of the otherworldly spirit beings. In other words, there are archangels, there are angels, there are delegated authorities, and then there are called cosmocrators, or the very lowest, the cosmocrators being world rulers, and then under them are the evil spirits, the demons. Those demons, I think, are what's left of the creatures that were produced in the union between the Nephilim and the women of earth. In other words, demons are creatures that may be called humanoid, but they are a cross between angel and human. And they are condemned by God to an eternal death. There is no redemption for those demons. In other words, they are the lowest of the low, and they can never be redeemed. Essentially, that's who we're talking about here. The shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. The horse might be a type of machine that they have. I don't know. You mean demons might have machines? Absolutely. I think demons do have machines. I do believe that when they are released, they're going to be invincible. They're going to be able to move quickly, en masse, and they will be a real threat. They have breastplates of iron. They have wings. Verse 9, the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. Now imagine a creature with gold around its head, lion teeth, long hair like women, is wearing armor around its thorax, It now has wings, and it can fly, and it can sting people with some kind of venom. But that's not all. They have stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men for 5 months. I think these creatures are serpentine. That is, they are of the serpent class, like their father, the devil. They are some kind of serpent beings. Because the whole description of these creatures is dragon-like, if you will. Reminds me of dragons. And I expect if you saw one of these creatures, you would say, that's exactly like I used to think dragons would look, because they do have tails, and I can't help but think of a pointed tail like a scorpion, and wings and armor. And how much farther do you have to go from there to imagine a little miniature dragon, or maybe a human-sized dragon, or maybe a large dragon? I don't know. But I think they're dragons. Dragon-like. They are serpentine. Tails like unto scorpions. They had stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. They had a king over them, which the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon. His name in the Greek tongue, Apollyon. One woe is past, and behold, 2 woes come. 2 woes more hereafter. Now, this is a woe. We've only seen one woe so far. Whoa. That is amazing to me, just to think that this is just the first one. Can you imagine how frightened you would be to see these sci-fi type creatures you see a cloud on the horizon, suddenly it refines itself into 20 or 30 shapes, and then in the next 10 seconds they get so big you can see they are the winged serpents, and they're coming after us. And you can hear their wings beating, and you know that they're going to get you if you don't get underground or get to some safety. And you wish you were dead, and you can't die. Well, man, that's terrible. And it's real. This is not fiction. Although, if you go pay, $5 to see the movie, it's fiction. Where these creatures are coming down, the Battle of Los Angeles or whatever. Creatures are coming down to earth. That's fiction. But this is not fiction. This is the judgment of God. Why does God do this? We serve a loving God. Why would He do this to the people on the planet in that day? Well, we're going to get into that because the Bible explains very carefully why. One woe. It's trumpet number 5. Now we come to the 6th angel. The second woe. The 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God. Now, the 4 horns of the golden altar are the exact analog to the golden altar that stood before the tabernacle and that stood before the Temple of Solomon. And it was there that the priests kept a fire burning all the time, and they would burn sacrificial offerings on that altar. And those sacrifices spoke of judgment. In other words, when you put a part of a beast on the altar, and the smoke of the beast goes up to heaven, that is supposed to be payment for the judgment that God has ruled to be upon man. So the golden altar here is associated with judgment. It's exactly what's going on. The 6th angel sounds. I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the 6th angel, which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Now, whose voice is that? When the sixth angel sounds, I heard a voice. My belief here is that that is the voice of Jesus, because Jesus is the high priest. All during the book of Revelation, Jesus functions as the high priest. In fact, from the time of his crucifixion, when he rose to be at the right hand of the Father, he has functioned as high priest of the church and of the world since that time in the heavenly temple. And so what he's doing here is exactly the same function as the ancient high priest had when he would go before God and offer a burnt offering. And that's exactly what he does. And he says to the angel, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. So the first woe loosed the demons that were down in the abyss, the subterranean demons. That was the first woe. The second woe looses four angels in the abyss. And by the way, I haven't talked about Apollyon yet. I'm going to go back to him in a little bit. But what's happening here in verse 13 is that now we have four angels leading the second woe. And that's very important that there are four angels. 4 is the kingdom number. 4 would be the number of the whole earth. 4 would be the way the Bible divides the earth, speaking of the four corners of the earth, four directions, and so forth. It's generally the kingdom number. And so these four angels most likely divide the entire earth. So the sixth angel sounds. The voice says, loose those four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Who would the four angels be? These would be the dark spirits of the fallen angels who tormented men during the era of Noah. We don't know their names. In pseudepigraphic literature, apocryphal literature, there are a lot of names given for the fallen angels. Here we just have 4 of them. They are probably archangels, or the equivalent thereof, because they're coming out of the river Euphrates. One of them might be the one the Bible calls the Prince of Persia. You remember back in Daniel chapter 10, when Daniel prayed and the angel of the Lord came to Daniel and said, it took me 21 days to get here because I was resisted by the Prince of Persia. He would be an archangel. And it's very possible that the Prince of Persia is one of the 4 angels here that are released from the Euphrates. We just don't know. But the first demonic invasion was led by one fallen angel called Apollyon. Second demonic invasion here is led by 4 angels. The first demonic invasion, that first one was able to torment but not to kill. This demonic invasion is commissioned to kill 1/3 of the earth's population. Bummer. You remember back in Revelation 6:8, during the seal judgments, we had 1/4 of the world's population killed at that time. Here we have 1/3. Well, if you take 1/4 and then 1/3 of the population, that's about half the population of the earth. So if today we have maybe, let's say 6 billion, we'd have 3 billion left. 7 billion, we'd have 3.5 billion people left after this particular judgment. So roughly 3.5 billion people would be killed at this time. I can't even conceive of such a thing. The number of demons involved in the second invasion is given at 200 million. Verse 15, the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year to slay the third part of men. These would be the third part that were left over after the first quarter of the population was killed. So this leaves about a half of mankind. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, 200 million. And I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, jacinth, brimstone. The heads of the horses were as the heads of lions. Out of their mouths issued fire, smoke, and brimstone. By these three was the third part of the men killed by fire, smoke, and brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. Now, a lot of people, without even so much as questioning the truth of the assertion, have said that this is a 200 million man army from China. And it was said a number of years ago that China could field an army of 200 million men, and the coincidence of that with the teachings of certain Bible teachers led a number of people to believe that this is the Chinese army. There have been books published saying this is the Chinese army. But these are not Chinese. They're demons. There's a huge difference. Now, you could say this is a fanciful description of an armored force, but I don't think so. Because, first of all, their leaders are loosed out of the Euphrates. In other words, these fallen angels are bound somehow into the Euphrates River. How do you bind an angel into a river? I don't know. But God did it. And then at a certain point, he says to an angel, let him loose. And they were loosed, and they were the leaders of a huge army of 200 million demons. Verse 17, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them. Now, horses? I don't know. Maybe. Demons on horseback. Where do you get the 200 million horses? You couldn't scare up 200 million horses today if you had to. If you went to every corral on earth and bought every horse. I don't know how many you could get, but not 200 million. But there are 200 million of them here. And the people sitting on those horses have breastplates of fire. Now, if I saw a breastplate of fire, maybe glowing bright red, or maybe it looked like it had some kind of force or power inside of it, I would say, I'm going to get out of here. And of jacinth, some kind of a transparent, semi-precious stone, and brimstone. Brimstone would by nature be something spewing smoke and fire and something like molten lava. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions. Oops. Even if you could find 200 million horses, you're not going to find 200 million of them with the heads of lions. That's a strange horse. It's a demon horse. It's a demon horse. Oh, boy. Well, you say, are you sure that this isn't talking about isn't this figurative speech for some kind of modern war machine? Like maybe, as some people have said, the demons that looked like locusts and flew and had stings in their tails, maybe that's John's way of describing helicopters, which some people have said, by the way. I don't think so. And maybe this is John's way of describing a future high-tech army of some kind, and the horses are really some kind of assault vehicles that are maybe nuclear powered. I don't know. Who knows? And has some kind of a ray gun aboard. You could go that way, but I tend, just because of the text, to think that God's turning loose the demonic hordes on the surface of the earth. And they're there for one reason, and that is to judge the remnant of men. By the way, all the time this is happening, the people sealed, that's back in Revelation 7, are out there giving the gospel of the kingdom. And they are protected, so they can't be harmed by the demons. So you got a whole class of people on earth who are free to travel, and they're traveling and they're looking at people, and Hey, I want to tell you something. Do you know there's a way you can be saved out of all this? And boy, don't you know that people are going to be eager to hear the message of salvation. Absolutely. So the heads of the horses are like the heads of lions. Out of their mouth issues forth smoke and brimstone. All of these things are lethal. Verse 18, by these three was the third part of the men killed, by fire, smoke, and brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. A horse with the head of a lion that can spit fiery brimstone out of its mouth. Never heard of such a thing. Well, I've heard of it. Never seen such a thing. I mean, not even anybody in the movies has invented such a beast as this. Well, maybe they've come close, but these are horrific beasts, for their power is in their mouth and in their tails. Their tails are like, and here it is, serpents. Again, these are serpent-class beings. Their father is a serpent, Satan. The fallen angels were serpent-like creatures. These horrific beings, mutant beings, if you will, have serpent-like tails and had heads, and with them they do hurt people. Verse 20, the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold, silver, brass, stone, of wood, which can neither see nor hear nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. So it's going to be a hellish world. The men who do exist are going to be the basest, crudest kind of people that you can imagine. You can't trust anybody. In fact, back in the Old Testament, the prophets say, don't trust even the one who is closest to you. Zechariah the prophet says, in that day, you can't trust even her whose head lieth in your bosom. Can't trust anybody. That'll be horrific. Not only are you besieged by these creatures from the pit, but you can't trust any other human being. Wow. The rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues yet repented not of the works of their hands. These people are going to be operating under this system of judgment, which will last, I believe, about 3 years. And they will operate this way for 3 whole years and not repent of their evil deeds. Now, we have blown 6 trumpets. The 7th trumpet is several orders of magnitude worse than the first 6. And next week, we're going to talk about the 7th trumpet,